Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful and bright day. We have an incredibly dramatic and game-changing update for you today that will shake the very foundations of the fashion world in Los Angeles. So let us dive right into the heart of the drama. The grand chandelier, suspended from the vaulted ceiling of the Forrester mansion, cast a shimmering, golden luminescence over the gathering, illuminating the meticulously curated floral arrangements and the crystal champagne flutes that sparkled in the hands of Los Angeles elite fashion royalty. This luxurious party, ostensibly convened to bring together close family and trusted friends, was enveloped in an atmosphere of warmth and sophisticated elegance. The sprawling estate, a symbol of decades of unparalleled success and artistic triumph, felt alive with the hum of gentle conversation and the soft melodies of string quartet playing in the background. Yet, beneath the surface of the polite laughter and the clinking of expensive crystal, a subtle, unspoken tension regarding the future of the company thrummed like a quiet heartbeat. The recent corporate maneuvers, the shifting alliances, and the relentless pressure of maintaining a global empire had left an invisible mark on the attendees, turning this gathering into a beautiful facade masking a brewing storm. Standing at the center of the opulent living room, Eric Forrester commanded the attention of every guest with the effortless grace that had defined his entire life and career. Clad in an impeccably tailored, elegant suit that spoke volumes of his legendary status in the haute couture world, Eric looked every bit the patriarch and the visionary founder of Forrester Creations. He gently tapped his glass, the clear, ringing sound cutting through the ambient noise and drawing the eyes of his family, his friends, and his colleagues. As the room fell into a respectful hush, Eric began his speech, his voice rich with emotion and nostalgia. He spoke eloquently about the humble beginnings of the company, the late nights spent hunched over sketch pads, the feel of raw silk and velvet, and the relentless pursuit of beauty that had transformed a simple dream into an international powerhouse. He praised the recent achievements of the team, acknowledging the hard work and dedication that kept the Forrester name synonymous with luxury. To everyone listening, including Ridge, Brooke, and Steffi, this appeared to be nothing more than a standard, heartfelt celebration of their collective legacy. Ridge stood tall, a faint smile playing on his lips, feeling a deep sense of pride in the empire he had helped his father build and sustain. Brooke watched with affectionate admiration, her own history so deeply intertwined with the fabric of the Forrester family that she felt every word Eric spoke resonate within her soul. Steffi, ever the pragmatic and fiercely protective co-CEO, allowed herself a rare moment of relaxation, believing that this night was a reaffirmation of their unified strength. The atmosphere was thick with mutual respect and shared triumph, painting a picture of a dynasty that was invincible and perfectly aligned in its vision for the future. However, the warm and nostalgic tone of Eric's address suddenly shifted, plunging the room into an entirely different emotional landscape. The affectionate smile faded from his face, replaced by a solemn, resolute expression that immediately sent a ripple of unease through the assembled guests. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his beloved family members, lingering on Ridge, Brooke, and Steffi. When he finally spoke again, the words that left his mouth were so profoundly shocking that they seemed to suck the very oxygen out of the room. Eric announced, with unwavering certainty, his permanent departure from Forrester Creations. He was not merely taking a sabbatical or stepping back from day-to-day operations. He was severing his professional ties to the company entirely, walking away from the empire that bore his name and defined his existence. The immediate aftermath of his declaration was a suffocating, dead silence. The string quartet had long since stopped playing, and the only sound was the collective, sharp intake of breath from the guests. The shock paralyzed the room, freezing everyone in a state of absolute disbelief. Ridge felt as though the floor had vanished beneath his feet, his mind violently rejecting the reality of what he had just heard. Brooke stood frozen, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning horror, while Steffi felt a cold knot of sheer panic tighten in her stomach. The patriarch, the guiding light, the very soul of Forrester Creations, was abandoning his post without warning, leaving a massive, terrifying void in his wake. But Eric was not finished, and the next phase of his announcement would prove to be even more devastating than the first. As the family struggled to process his resignation, Eric calmly proceeded to name his successors, the individuals to whom he was handing over the absolute and total control of the fashion empire. He declared that Donna Logan, a woman known for her kindness and historical connection to the family, but certainly not for her ruthless corporate acumen, would be stepping into a position of supreme authority. And alongside her, Eric appointed a completely unknown, unnamed new designer, a mysterious figure with no established ties to the Forrester legacy, to co-run the entire company. He was granting them full, unrestricted control over the creative and financial direction of Forrester Creations, effectively bypassing the established hierarchy and the bloodline that had bled for the brand. The sheer absurdity and magnitude of this decision sent shockwaves of pure devastation through Ridge and Brooke. For Ridge, this was the ultimate betrayal, a knife twisted deeply into his heart and his pride. He had dedicated his entire life to Forrester Creations, sacrificing his personal peace, his relationships, and his sanity to ensure the company remained at the pinnacle of the fashion world. He was the heir apparent, the premier designer, the son who had stood shoulder to shoulder with his father through every crisis and triumph. To see his birthright, his life's work, unceremoniously handed over to Donna and a nameless stranger was an indignity he could barely comprehend. He felt entirely robbed, stripped of his identity and his rightful place at the head of the table. Brooke shared in this profound sense of violation, her fury igniting like a wildfire. She had fought tooth and nail for her place within the Forrester family, overcoming decades of adversity, judgment, and bitter rivalries to cement her legacy. She had always viewed the company as a family trust, a sacred institution that belonged to those who had poured their blood, sweat, and tears into its foundations. The idea that Eric would casually toss the keys to the kingdom to someone entirely outside their inner circle, while simultaneously elevating Donna to a position of unearned power, felt like a deliberate insult to everything she and Ridge had built. The betrayal was deeply personal, fracturing the deep bond of trust and affection she had always shared with Eric. While Ridge and Brooke grappled with the emotional and personal ramifications of Eric's betrayal, Steffi was entirely consumed by a terrifying, pragmatic panic. As the current co-CEO, her mind instantly raced through the catastrophic consequences of this sudden, inexplicable shift in leadership. She envisioned the plummeting stock prices, the panicked phone calls from global distributors, the merciless media spin, and the total erosion of buyer confidence. Forrester Creations was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that relied heavily on the stability and recognizable genius of its core family members. Placing a mysterious, untested designer at the helm alongside Donna, who had no experience navigating the vicious, cutthroat realities of the modern fashion industry, was tantamount to corporate suicide. Steffi feared that Eric's reckless decision would obliterate decades of carefully cultivated reputation and value overnight. Unable to contain the explosive mixture of grief, anger, and desperation, Ridge and Brooke broke the suffocating silence, aggressively confronting Eric in the center of the room. The polite veneer of the luxurious party shattered completely as Ridge demanded an immediate and logical explanation for this sheer madness. His voice trembled with a potent blend of rage and heartbreak as he asked his father how he could possibly discard his own flesh and blood, the very people who had kept the company afloat through its darkest hours. Brooke stood firmly by Ridge's side, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation, echoing his sentiments and demanding to know why their years of unwavering loyalty were being rewarded with such a callous and humiliating dismissal. Amidst the fiery confrontation, Steffi desperately tried to cut through the anger and reach the underlying truth of the situation. She approached her grandfather not with rage, but with a frantic, pleading intensity, searching his eyes for any sign of illness, coercion, or mental decline. She could not accept that the brilliant, strategic man she had idolized her entire life would willingly orchestrate the destruction of their family's legacy. She questioned his motives, gently but firmly pressing him to reveal if someone was manipulating him, if he was facing a secret health crisis, or if there was some hidden threat forcing his hand. Steffi's heart ached with the terrifying possibility that the grandfather she loved was slipping away, replaced by a stranger making irrational, self-destructive choices. However, Eric remained completely stoic and unyielding in the face of their combined fury and desperation. He stood his ground, his posture rigid and his eyes burning with a fierce, uncompromising conviction. He vehemently defended his choice, refusing to back down or apologize for the shock he had inflicted upon them. Eric explained, with a passionate intensity that startled everyone, that his decision was not an act of betrayal, but an act of desperate preservation. He argued that the true artistic vision of Forrester Creations, the pure, unadulterated passion that had birthed the company, was being slowly suffocated by the modern corporate machine. He looked directly at Ridge and Steffi, his words cutting like glass, as he accused them of allowing profit-driven motives, endless board meetings, and a relentless pursuit of commercial success to overshadow the soul of their art. Eric painted a grim picture of a company that had lost its way, a brand that had become too safe, too predictable, and too obsessed with the bottom line. He insisted that true, groundbreaking art required a pure, untainted environment, free from the cynical calculations of corporate executives. In his eyes, Donna represented the heart, the emotional core that the company desperately needed to rediscover. And the mysterious new designer, Eric claimed, possessed a raw, unfiltered genius, a visionary talent that had not yet been corrupted by the demands of the fashion industry. He firmly believed that this drastic, shocking change in leadership was the only way to save Forrester Creations from becoming just another soulless, profit-churning factory, even if it meant breaking the hearts of his own children. These harsh, unyielding declarations acted as a violent catalyst, instantly igniting a fierce and ruthless power struggle within the opulent walls of the mansion. The family, which just moments ago had appeared so perfectly united, fractured completely, deeply divided by Eric's philosophical stance and his shocking reallocation of power. Lines were immediately drawn in the sand, transforming the luxurious party into a bitter battlefield. Ridge, fueled by a potent mix of righteous anger and wounded pride, silently vowed to fight this decision with every resource at his disposal, refusing to let a stranger usurp his throne. Steffi's mind began calculating her next legal and corporate maneuvers, determined to protect the company's financial stability from what she viewed as her grandfather's artistic delusion. The episode drew to a close with a haunting, beautifully tragic scene. The Forrester family stood scattered across the grand living room, the physical distance between them mirroring the sudden, insurmountable emotional chasm that had opened up. The champagne flutes lay abandoned. The floral arrangements seemed to mock their fractured reality, and the air was thick with a heavy, oppressive tension. Each character was locked in their own internal torment, grappling with the profound betrayal and the terrifying uncertainty of the future. The silence that filled the mansion was no longer a stunned pause, but the quiet, ominous calm before a devastating hurricane. This deeply emotional and shocking climax signaled the beginning of a massive, unprecedented storm, promising that the battle for the soul and the throne of Forrester Creations would be the most brutal and heart-wrenching.